Suzy Wrong, Joy Drive with Dee and Warren's film, TV and theatre reviewer.
Suzy Wrong, how are you?
I'm good. You know what? The two of you are such good people. When it comes to social media, I'm just clicking unfriend at the drop of a hat.
Is that where you went?
Oh.
Suzy's referencing, of course, the discussion we had earlier where I'm like, what do you do with people that say whack stuff online? Do you unfriend them or do you try and educate them? You're just an unfriender, Suzy.
I'm an unfriender, very easily unfriending people. I just have no bandwidth and energy to deal with those people. And I feel like, you know, the chances of you making any change to those people is just so slim. I'm not saying that people don't change, but it's so hard. And social media isn't really where I go for that sort of thing. Social media is where I go to entertain myself and sort of have a relaxing time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I will also say, while we've got you on the line, Jess, one of our listeners, did text in to say, this is where we need allies to step up. Too many times it falls to marginalise folks to put their hurt aside to educate others. Please challenge misinformation or bigotry wherever you see it, and that includes online.
Yeah, I think it may be a bit different if you're an ally, because it's a little bit taxing on your own soul when you're speaking up for other people. Because if you're defending yourself all day long, it's just not the way to live.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, anyway, let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Tell us about
Your Name Engraved Herein. 刻在你心底的名字. Did you like that show off?
It just sounds a lot better when you say it like that.
It's a teenage romance that takes place in 1987 Taiwan when two boys, Ahan and Birdie, develop a relationship at the end of their high school years. The experience is a tumultuous one for them as they try to make sense of their love in a climate of unrelenting oppression and persecution. All of this happens many years before the very successful Taiwanese LGBT political movement that had led to the passage of same-sex marriage in 2019. There are a couple of harrowing scenes of very overt homophobia, but the film is probably most memorable for its bittersweet depictions of young love. So, Dean and Warren, did you find anything surprising about the film?
I was surprisingly titillated by the shower scene.
Oh,
that took me completely by surprise.
the shower scene was amazing, wasn't it? It was like a demonstrate. They build up the intimacy throughout the whole show, which I really liked about it. Like it wasn't just all of a sudden these two guys were lovers. They just built up the intimacy and the love between them, and then it just exploded in the shower.
Oh, didn't.
But it
Let's not make it sound like it is a pornographic film, because
No,
it
it's
is
not.
not. It is actually a very sweet and moving story, and it's not sort of, and there's absolutely no spoilers here, but it's not what you think it's going to be, and it is sweeter than you can imagine. The title, Your Name Here Within, relates to a song, and that scene, Suzy Wrong, where that song is played down the phone line, is unspeakably moving for me.
Yeah, I think that's when the film's kind of really lifts up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When sort of towards the last half hour, I think a lot of it felt a little bit too mild for me, I would say. I would like there to have been a little bit more discussion about the politics of things, but, you know, that's my personality. They kind of delve very deeply into sort of these two young boys, these two boys, and how they're coping with life in general. I thought it was a very polite, very characteristically polite Chinese film, and also very characteristically sweet sort of Chinese romance. But, you know, it is still very unusual to see kind of a gay story happening on the screen for people that are not white. So I thought this is a special moment. The film did very well in the Taiwanese market. Last year it was the best selling Taiwanese film. So it broke a few records then. It was certainly the most popular LGBT film in Taiwanese history. So,
Suzy,
it's something to remember.
How do you think, we know that Taiwan was the first Asian country to legalise same-sex marriage. How do you think the film will be received in other Asian countries?
Oh, I think it's going to be challenging for a lot of people. Because, you know, Taiwan is a bit of an exception because of its relationship with China and its constant trying to differentiate itself from China. It's always trying to say, we are not China, we are not that, we are not that, we are not that. So if you're homophobic, we are not homophobic. But the rest of the Asian world don't kind of have that sort of position about things. So it's great that Netflix has put it on so lots of Asian people can see it. I don't know if it's blocked in Asian countries, but I know that in places like in Singapore, normally this stuff is very, very frowned upon.
Yeah, indeed. There was, of course, it's made for the Chinese audience. It's made for presumably the Taiwanese audience and more broadly people of an Asian sensibility and politic. I was left thinking, how come I don't know much about the politics of Taiwan? And it, in fact, pushed me to go and learn more about it because, you know, with the it's very interesting. There's a point at which the obviously the military it's relaxed. The political situation is relaxed. The martial law is lifted, and the impact that we see is that everybody gets a fringe. Like all the boys just get shaggy haircuts like the Beatles.
It seemed a very slow progression out of martial law, didn't it? Rather than just a definitive line of we once here one day and the next day everything's relaxed.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. It makes me want to learn more about it. Can I just ask you, Suzy Rong, I know that it is one of your absolute hobby horses. Do you know these two beautiful it's stunning looking boys? Are they known homosexual actors in Taiwan?
I don't think they've come out, but they haven't not come out either. You know, like they haven't sort of said, "Oh, this is my girlfriend, this is my wife." So they're sort of very young actors. One of them, this is his third time playing on screen a gay character. Yeah. So you can draw whatever conclusion you want. And because they're young, they kind of don't have a history. And also, sometimes I think about it. You know, this is a different generation. You know, maybe they look at sexuality in a different way. So. They're not really gay, but we don't really know. You know,
a couple of things that stood out for me was the fact that they were questioning the religious teacher and why their love goes against the Bible, and it was just so it just captured the damage that is done when you're told that there's something wrong with you and there's something wrong with your love and you can't express it at the time of when they were children, and then it also showed the impact that had on their entire life, right through the whole life to adulthood. So I thought they did a great job of capturing that.
And it was so good that the priest played it so warm and so soft as well.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Suzy.
So it kind of shrouds the homophobia in this sort of really warm, glowing religious light, which I thought an interesting way to look at it and maybe really effective.
Well, it shows our preconceptions when you're watching gay films and a priest appears on, and an Anglo priest, no less, appears like sort of, appears on screen. You just automatically assume that there's going to be some wrongdoing by the priesthood here, and he's in charge of very young, very beautiful boys in a boarding school situation. So it's very interesting that our preconceptions about movie making and about the church come up.
I think that's the plus side of filmmakers making films that are very personal. I think this one could be most of it's probably autobiographical. So I think in that way you don't kind of get really bad villains, that sort of thing happening on screen, and sort of the hurt, the harm that's caused to them doesn't come out of anybody's bad intentions, which is a really good way to sort of evaluate these things. It's not really about what individual people are, what harm they cause and what sort of meanness they might bring to a relationship. It's just kind of the system that people have to live under and the conventions that people have to live with. And I think in that way you kind of see traditional Chinese Confucian culture around everywhere in the film, and you can see that, all right, that's the thing that's causing harm, not really the individual people. But how do you get rid of that? That means everybody has to invest in it.
The thing that it reminds me of also, Suzy Rong, just because it is a foreign language film with subtitles, my language is not that good. So I realise that I spend so much time watching television sort of remotely or not really focusing on the screen, but because you're reading it, I just thought I forgot how much I don't engage with the screen when I'm watching it. I sort of do another thing or iron or fold laundry or something. But to really invest in this, and it's so beautiful to look at as well, that it was a great experience. I would not have come across this film had you not have set it for our homework, so thank you for that.
I found I was pausing it as well, Dee, just to go back over scenes.
In the shower scene?
No, not in the shower scene, but in other scenes as well. But, I'm quite hopeful after seeing this film that it will be received in other Asian countries, and it will give hope to LGBTIQ plus people that there's nothing wrong with their love.
Well, we hope so, but we can be very removed from a lot of other countries. I try my best to sort of remind myself that we are in a very, very privileged position. Just like with this COVID thing, we forget what reality is like for so many people for the rest of the world.
Yeah, indeed.
Absolutely. What's our homework for next week, Suzy?
Look, we haven't been very good Australians. I think I've been on this show for 3 months or something. I've never done an Australian thing, I don't think.
Well, that's on you.
Yeah, so I'm fixing that. Next week we're covering an Australian film called Unsound, and it's opening in a few cinemas, in small numbers of cinemas. So real life movies. It's starting in Melbourne and Adelaide and Lismore next week, and then it goes on to other places.
Are you going to get us out of the house? We're going to actually get out of the house.
Well, we have the privilege of watching it on the internet if we want to.
Okay.
But because you're in Melbourne, you can go to the cinema if you want to.
Oh, I'd like that. That would be a good experience.
Yeah,
I've been to
I
the
think so
drive-in
too.
for you, and now I'll go to the cinema.
Yeah.
So Unsound. Suzy Wrong, thank you so much for reviewing it. So it's Your Name Engraved Herein, and it's
On
available
Netflix.
on Netflix.
Thanks, Suzy.
Thanks, Suzy.
Bye.
See you next Tuesday.